Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Romain. I'm the CEO of Cosmo Connected. Today, we're doing our new webinar with a very, very amazing guest. Just to let you know what about this webinar is really about talking with the main actor of the micromobility. Our startup, Cosmo Connected, is based in Paris. We are specialized in connected safety for all mobility partners. And we want to bring better safety for the different riders. Today, we have the opportunity to talk about accelerating micro-mobility startups. We already did a lot of webinar with people from City Schools, from DOT, from Bird, AXA. Last week, we had Fabrice Furlan from Fédération Micromobilité, Adrien Lelièvre, journalist of Les Échos, and Damien Pichereau, the deputy from La République En Marche. Today, we really want to focus on a bit more about the micromobility startups and see how they're going to grow post-COVID. I'm lucky to have a few amazing guests, so let's start straight away to introduce themselves. Thanks for being here. Hello, everyone. So as you know, you will be able to chat and to ask some questions. And we will try to answer them. So thanks again. And let me introduce you, Sylvain Theveniaud from the Allianz Accelerator. Hello, Sylvain.
Hi, and thank you for the invitation, Romain. So I'm Sylvain. I manage the Allianz Accelerator. So I joined Allianz 5 years ago to create this accelerator. I will talk a little bit more about the accelerator after. Cosmo Connected was one of the startups we accelerated. And we accelerated Cosmo Connected with Toyota Tsusho. You will have an introduction of Toyota Tsusho after that also. A little bit of background. So I spent 15 years in the software industry, working with software for IT departments in different positions, product management, product strategy, but also business development, partner business development. And I used to work also in Silicon Valley, in Mountain View, in this scope. And I joined, like I said, Allianz 5 years ago to create from scratch the accelerator.
Thank you, Sylvain. Great background. Nicola Dallatana. Ciao. How are you?
Hi. Ciao. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today to speak about micromobility. I'm part of the Toyota Tsusho team that is looking after micromobility and intercepting innovation in this case and working with startups. And we started, as Sylvain mentioned, working with him a couple of years ago, and the experience has been very fruitful. You're actually one of the results of that cooperation, because that's how we met. I'm very happy to be here to discuss about micromobility and the impact of COVID and how we can help startups to make a difference in micromobility. Thank you very much. In terms of my background, I started advocating for what is now called micromobility when I had hair, as I like to say. I started almost 20 years ago with a company called Segway before launch, and I helped with regulatory affairs. Meaning that the first challenge was to get approved for use on public space. And then I moved to different positions. I ended up spending almost 14 years. And so I had different positions as a global vice president for regulatory affairs, global sales, marketing. And I ended up in 2014 as a managing director for the largest region in terms of business, which was EMEA. After that, I spent quite a lot of time with medical devices, including Japanese companies that are making very innovative wheelchairs, and Swiss companies also making self-balancing wheelchairs. So, and an Italian company making a very interesting L category vehicle called Viro Esprima. So altogether, this experience, put me in a position to give a contribution and to try to understand how Toyota Tsusho can help the group and itself getting into this business of micromobility in a responsible way.
Thank you. So now you're the head of new mobility at Toyota Tsusho.
Yes, we work with a team which is based in Paris, in Brussels, and also Japan. And we're coordinating different actions and working very closely with the rest of the group as well, the Toyota family group.
Okay, thank you, Nicola. And the last, Matthieu Lattes, thank you for being here. Honor, and you will introduce yourself. And of course, we have a worldwide exclusive news that just came in. So thanks for being here. Very good timing.
Thanks for your invitation, Romain, and happy to be here today. Basically, on my end, so I'm today heading the French office and European operations of White Star Capital, which is a U.S. fund, a U.S. venture capital firm, initially founded out of New York, London, and Montreal, as two founders are Canadian. With the DNA of helping startups that have already established their business in one country to go global, to go international, and in particular for European startups to go into North America and vice versa. And we've now added an Asian presence as well, with offices in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and presence in Seoul. Today at White Star, basically we're investing in Series A and Bs with check size of 5 to 15 million into companies that have already demonstrated their product market fit. We have offices, so as I was saying, now in London, New York, Montreal, Paris, Hong Kong, Tokyo. And we invested already into 3 companies in France. We established the office here 2 years ago. We invested in Miro, Series A in 2017, in Klaxoon, Series A in the software space in 17-18 as well, and more recently into Mindsay, a company in the mobility space, which is covering a space that's quite interesting, which is basically the customer automation for mobility, becoming quite a big topic. So the tech stack that's developing beyond the acceleration of the usage of micromobility. And the other one for which I'm here today is a company called Tier Mobility, which is now the European leader in micromobility. We'll develop it a bit further later on, and that's the company on which we have big news to share today on the security front in particular. So I'll be happy to develop that a bit further afterwards. Regarding my own background, in 2 words, I started out in the finance world a bit less than 20 years ago. Working for JP Morgan and then BNP Paribas in London, New York, and Paris in M&A advisory, so mergers and acquisitions basically, and then joined the tech world in 2009-10, launching a company called Isograd in the software space. Developed it for 5 years, sold my shares after 5 years, and the company is a company I'm still at the board of. That's still up and running in Europe and in the US. I then launched an M&A boutique focused on helping entrepreneurs to raise funds in France. Did that for 2-3 years, and helped in particular Auto-École.net in the mobility space already. And then joined Rothschild, where I've been heading the venture advisory team. We're helping entrepreneurs and large corporates on deals. And in particular, I've been very much involved on mobility deals, both for taxi apps such as Chauffeur Privé or Marcel. Been helping as well an Israeli company in that sector. I've been also helping Europcar and SNCF on the digital assets that they had been investing in. I've been having quite an experience there. And when I joined White Star 2 years ago, that's one of the reasons why we felt comfortable going into this space, and we invested both into Tier Mobility in Germany a year and a half ago, and which has been growing extremely fast since then, and Mindsay on the tech stack of mobility.
Thank you for the three of you for this quick introduction. Today we will try to analyze a bit the activity with the COVID, and try to see how the three of you are trying to work and change a bit your strategy. And it's really interesting for the startups who are, and the other people who are looking at us right now, to try to explain them what's your vision. Sylvain, can you explain a bit about your accelerator program in Allianz, and maybe we can share a bit of slide. So potentially we'll be able also to introduce your next batch.
Yes, of course. So I would like to talk about different things about the accelerator. So the first thing is the structure of the program. I don't know if you share the slide, Romain.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
So the structure of the program. So we accelerate 5 startups 2 times per year. So we have a summer batch in June and a winter batch in December. We choose only 5 startups because we really want to help them, to accompany them, and to accelerate them to scale. We focus mainly on investments and business development, and also a discovery of foreign ecosystem. So for that, we do different kind of exploratory trip to discover ecosystem, foreign ecosystem. For example, we did one in Tokyo, Israel, and Hong Kong, China, and so on. So it was the past before COVID, of course. We will see how we will do that after later on in this webinar. We have a network of VC, so a lot of VC have invested into a startup, mainly most of the French VC, but also corporate venture like Rakuten or Tencent also invested into our startup. We have something unique in the acceleration program, which is also to have co-acceleration program with other partners, other corporates worldwide. So one of them is We SNCF in France, and the other one, which is online with us, is Toyota Tsusho Japan. So we co-accelerate startup, which means that we accelerate startup at the Allianz Accelerator, and Toyota Tsusho provide additional services on top of that. So, for example, they are able to, like they did with Cosmo Connected, they are able to help distribute product in Asia, or they are able also to invest into the startup if they think there is a fit. So far we accelerated in 5 years. We accelerated 50 startups. They raised total 250 million euros. And one of them was the Next 40, it's Ledger, and we created 40 projects, proof of concept or project with Allianz subsidiaries, and we accelerate startups that have already a product, already some revenue, and have the ability to scale. And so you can see on the slide some example like Ledger, On-Off, Roger Voice, Allo Media, and so on. And different topics. So we accelerate startup in mobility, in health. It could be also robotics or AI or a lot of emerging technology. In fact, because the idea of insurance is really to be closer as possible to the market and to understand really how the market will move to be able to create the good insurance product. And usually we have a synergy with the different startups that we accelerate. So the synergy could be like one example for Cosmo Connected again was to build a partnership with our roadside subsidiary partner to create an additional service to Cosmo Connected. And about mobility. So mobility is 20% of the startup that we accelerated from the beginning. One example is Vlog. For example, Vlog is a car sharing technology. Vlog, it's one ride every 2 minutes in the world using the platform Vlog, for example. And we also accelerated startup in safety, so Cosmo Connected and eBikes Lab, for example, but also mobility as a service and sustainability in mobility with WeNow, for example. The idea of the acceleration is really to help the startup to scale. It's a 6 acceleration program which focus on international and fundraising.
Thank you, Sylvain. I was very happy to join the program. So what you didn't say is that you're based in Nice, and the program was in your offices, which was amazing, which is actually in the football stadium of Nice, which is the Allianz stadium.
But
so we'll talk about.
It's not necessary to move or to locate your team in Nice to be accelerated. So we accelerate startup that could French startup, but also foreign startup. And we have some kind of masterclass where we have all the startup in Nice in the stadium, but usually it's 3 days per month. And we do a lot of remote acceleration also. So we are able to accelerate startup from everywhere in France and outside France also.
You will develop that after the post-COVID, because I'm sure you will talk about that. It will be interesting. And I was also very pleased to discover Nicola, who is part of the Toyota Tsusho, and he was also, as you said, the partner of this program. Nicola, what was your goal a bit? What is the goal of Toyota Tsusho in a new mobility? Can you describe a bit what you're trying to do in collaboration? Because we know Toyota is a big group in our industry, but we want to know more about the Toyota Tsusho.
Yeah, maybe just to say a few words about Toyota Tsusho without getting too details, and maybe getting because it's. I think it's important to make a distinction. Toyota Enterprise, let's say the Toyota family is composed of 17 companies, and all of them are, except one, is busy with manufacturing. So obviously the most famous one is Toyota Motor Corporation, which is of course manufacturing the cars. That's the one everybody knows. There's other companies like, for example, Denso, which is a tier 1, so manufacturing different types of components and systems. So Toyota Tsusho means trading. So it's the trading company of the Toyota Group. Trading companies were created after World War II to help Japanese manufacturers to make business overseas. And when I mean make business overseas, it means exporting and distributing their products and also source material outside of Japan. So in time, trading companies have evolved, and today the very large corporation doing not only trading, so pure distribution and supply chain, but also doing investment and also participating into the developing of innovative solutions. So in that sense, Toyota Tsusho is composed of 7 different divisions. Our activities, the next mobility, is belonging to the electronics and chemical division. Maybe you go to the next slide, which is showing the Toyota Group. So the reason why we're getting involved in this micromobility is that we believe there is a strong emphasis on the case, meaning connected, autonomous, shared, and electrified mobility, and a big role we think will be played by micromobility. So that's why we want to get involved in this. And our angle, of course, is to start from the priorities that are associated with the Toyota brand, which is safety, sustainability, and of course making a contribution to civil society. The slide that you show here talks about Toyota Tsusho and the activities. As you can see, we're involved in distribution. For example, Toyota Tsusho is distributing cars all over Africa, not only Toyota brands, but also other brands. And we're involved in supply of electronics to the automotive industry as the largest player there. We also have stakes at operating airports, which is also another activities of ours. Maybe you go to the next slide, which will show the contribution to the supply chain part. So we basically, when I say contribution to supply chain, we look at sourcing, for example, lithium ion in South America, and then sourcing steel, and then taking care of the logistics to supply to the automotive industry, do some parts assembly as well. We're involved in that as well, up to the distribution of cars, as we mentioned just now, in certain markets worldwide markets and up to recycling. So Toyota Tsusho itself is a large corporation, about 58,000 employees, about 70 billion of turnover worldwide. And we're also busy with developing connected services. So we really look at the mobility from mobility of goods and mobility of people. And we look at the whole value chain from in-factory intralogistics to last mile delivery with some companies we're working with. And when it comes to people, to basically moving people from from A to B, I would say, and with a very strong emphasis on micromobility. So why micromobility? Because the last mile is obviously a very important part of the overall spectrum of mobility. And so our approach has been, if you go to the next slide, to look at the whole offering of what we call micromobility, inclusive micromobility, but also active micromobility. So here we kind of put everything together that is manufactured by not only Toyota Motor Corporation, but also by third parties, because we have a very kind of wide sense of what micromobility means to us. And so with particular emphasis on inclusive micromobility, we started doing some projects. This is the products that I dealt with in my long career in micromobility. We started doing projects that are trying to combine the different services and the different tiers of the mobility spectrum and to try to put them together. This is an example that we did with a company. It's a startup company actually called Indigo Wheel, which is associated with the Indigo Parking company. We were the first company that puts the offering of inclusive micromobility, in this case a connected wheelchair, into mobility as a service environment. So the business case is that the user comes to the parking, leave their car, is people with reduced mobility, and so they now find a micromobility solution that will be able to assist them in their movements from the parking to the real world. This is another example of inclusive micromobility, which is a kind of different approach. It's a very accessible, low platform micromobility stand-up device that you can step on it. It's very easy, very accessible. It's very stable, so it doesn't need to have training. It's very intuitive to use. And then you can use it very safely in urban environments. What is important and interesting is that it's fitted with a sensor that will be able to detect obstacle in front of it and then slow down in case of a potentially dangerous situation. So this gives a overall kind of introduction of, it's a very partial, it's very limited to what we're doing at this point in time, what is public, but it's something that gives an idea of why Toyota Tsusho got involved in this and why we believe there is a strong demand for micromobility going forward, especially due to the current situation with COVID.
Oh, thank you very much, Nicola, for this long introduction, but it was really necessary to understand why a group like you so many things. We saw any kind of vehicles from bike, e-bike, e-scooter, and that gave me the transition to Matthieu. So White Star is a huge fun. Tell us about Tier. Why Tier first and not others? And can you tell, as you're a board member of Tier, and also we can discuss about the big announcement. But explain us why you decide to invest in Tier and why Tier has something special regarding the others.
Absolutely, with great pleasure. So basically, we came into the micromobility space a year and a half ago. First, with a witnessing that in 1 year of activity, the usage by consumers of this product has been second to none. I mean, no other type of vehicle had known such growth in the market when it was launched, be it from Uber to even in Paris, Velib, you name it, no one has grown as fast. So there's usage, so something we should look at. Then the question is, second question is, it's okay, I will share it, don't worry. Second question is, what are the key success factors on this market? And we first, realized that the market would be very much a European one, much bigger than the US market, for example, because there's a density of large cities which are well suited for small type of length of transportation in combination with other means of transportation. So the multimodality was very well suited for that type of engine. And then the key success factors for us were three things. First, you need to realize that this is not a marketplace type of model. This is a fleet operation model where you need to have professionals of fleet management, i.e. sourcing, i.e. managing, i.e. Spreading, i.e. repairing. And it's a different type of skill set than the one of being a marketplace like an Uber, for example. So that's one. Two is the fact that this kind of business, as it requires acquisition of hardware, before you can finance this hardware with asset financing, like debt financing, would require a significant amount of equity. And so the capacity to raise equity is probably a second key success factor that we saw at the beginning. And third thing is the capacity to be sustainable in all senses of the word, i.e. first, financially sustainable because you need to have a long lifetime of your scooters to cover your initial costs. So this mentality of first thinking how long can this last for. Second, sustainable in the sense that the decision makers are municipalities and that they are very much paying attention to the fact that they don't end up with symmetries of scooters like we had seen symmetries of bikes in some cities in the past. And you don't want to put in the street, for example, vehicles that are being recharged by diesel-enabled motors or that kind of picture that we've seen. So based on this, we've analyzed the markets, and we've been thinking that Tier had the combination of first a team that was able to that was coming from the refurbishing market, and so that were pros of operations that understood that versus other people who were more coming from marketplace environments and who were more thinking of this as one more marketplace type of model. Two was the fact that in the current geopolitical context, having a European player to win the European market was probably an advantage because the decision makers were public and there would be kind of an European preference in the choices made by the municipalities, and we're seeing it at the moment very clearly in the past RFPs that have been won by Tier in Germany, in Norway, in France with Grenoble lastly, that the European players are very much favored, and I think the very past events that we've seen with the acquisition of Line by Uber and the issues in terms of reputation of others during this COVID period have proven as well that I guess the values of European players were also the ones that probably public decision maker would favor. So, but a year and a half ago, we thought that Tier had probably the best team, that being European would be a great advantage, that they were pros of managing operations, and that their business model was very sustainable with unit economics that were far better than others because of this capacity to manage fleets and to repair scooters. And in between, they've added a number of layers, including in terms of security and healthcare. That are, I think that made them a player of choice at that time. And we've seen that in a year and a half, while a number of players have disappeared, some have been, acquired in sort of distressed situations like a Cirque or Line, and others are still there. And among this one, you see that European players are quite strong. So and in between from a financial standpoint, the Series B moment, which has been a bit the same for a number of players, has made a difference between those who were not able to raise money from external investors and who had to come back to sort of bridging situations from their existing investors, and people who were able to attract significant investors like Tier did with, for example, a Mubadala, which is probably the deepest pockets in the world, as well as a number of funds that we have around the table now with the North Zone, Point 9, ourselves. We've got investors from, I guess, 12 different European countries at the moment. So that's quite a big strength at the moment, given the requirements of this market. So I think to answer your question in short, what we've seen a year and a half ago is now demonstrating, I think, truer than ever. And maybe to make a switch to the your next question, which was about the announcement that we wanted to make today. So we're very proud to announce that Tier is the first player globally in the e-scooter market to now have a box including a helmet, foldable helmet inside this box that will be available on Tier scooters starting today in Berlin and Paris in some scooters, and with much more scooters being after this trial period of a month, much more scooters being equipped. We're talking about 5,000 scooters being equipped by the end of June of this capacity, because we believe that safety is definitely key for users, for our partners, municipality partners as well. And so we try to address this topic that I know is very dear to you, Romain.
Indeed.
We addressed it with this foldable helmet that's being made by a French startup that we've integrated into a box that's been designed and patented by Tier to saving injuries and lives and keep making security a priority.
It's a very good. Thank you for this, for all of these elements. It's a very good, big announcement, and very well appreciate. We did a survey in March with YouGov asking about security regarding the scooter, and 76% of the French people were saying that they would request helmets. They should be mandatory for riding an e-scooter. So security is one of the very important thing in micromobility that make me introduce the transition to Nicola. So we are part Cosmo and Toyota Tsusho are partners. We are talking about different kind of partnership. One is distribution in Asia. I had the chance to go with you to Japan to meet the Toyota team, and I remember that the first thing that your team was saying that they were scared about business model, about this sharing company, but more important about safety. Can you tell us a bit about your vision about that?
Yeah, of course. Yes, thank you. Yeah, when we look at micromobility, of course, like I mentioned before, we look primarily at three aspects. One is safety. The second one is the sustainability of the business from an economic point of view, and also from an environmental point of view. And the third one is a contribution to the community. But the first one, priority, of course, is safety. And when you talk about micromobility and the relative new ramifications, moving people in urban areas, of course, safety is a major concern. So the first thing that you learn when you deal with mobility is to protect yourself and your head. In my long experience at Segway, introducing new innovative solution, I was able to experience firsthand how important it is to protect your head. And at a time, especially when the culture, when I started at the beginning of the century, the culture for helmets use was not really widespread. And so when we look at working with the startups, in this case, your startup, we were immediately kind of fascinated by the way that you brought a very basic technology, a helmet, to be fitted with very advanced technology already quite widely spread in higher speed vehicles, like motorcycles or even cars with the eco, for example, and combined that to micromobility, which at this stage there was a very strong debate on how safe would be kick scooters and whether this was a right solution for urban mobility. And so I think this helped us a lot as a company to start looking into this micromobility with the peace of mind that we were making a contribution. So in that framework, what we have developed together after we have met you at the Accelerator with Sylvain was to do what we do primarily, which is trading. So look at distribution in Asia, and also look at how we could enrich the connected services that you put together with your team. So working closely with your product development team to see if our experience in cars was able to be transferred into a micromobility environment. So we're of course busy with both processes, and we're very, very glad to be able to look at this, because we believe that ensuring the safety of the user will make it a sustainable solution, particularly now where there's a lot of new users that are attracted to micromobility. Before, micromobility solutions were attractive, what we call the active part of the population used to ride a bicycle. Today, the micromobility is attracting a lot of new users, so the need to provide extra solutions and extra care for safety, it's really important. The other aspect, which I think is very important to mention, is how do you make mobility as a service sustainable in the long term? Before, other presenters were talking about the fact that there has been very relevant and very significant investment into this business, even by automotive companies. But the viability, the economic viability of it, we're just starting to see now companies trying to make a healthy balance sheet, a sustainable balance sheet from the point of view of unit economics and durability of the vehicles themselves, and also optimized operations. So when we look at Toyota Tsusho as making a contribution, we look at the whole kind of ecosystem from the safety point of view, but also from economic viability, and coming up with solution as well that will help new groups of people that are not part of the active population to be embracing this incredible form of transportation, which we think will be a big part of the mobility spectrum going forward.
It's really interesting what you're saying, because now a company like you are really trying to focus on mobility, micromobility, and since a year and a half together, we are really appreciating it, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow our partnership, but also to use your 10 years of experience in car industry. And this is what I would like to ask to Sylvain. What was exactly the partnership with Toyota for the Tsusho for this for your accelerating program? Are you looking to grow that kind of partnership again with? And more important, regarding the micromobility, so that we have also as a startup like eBike Live when we were doing the batch. Is it something where you want to focus, because you can see that it has been growing, like Matthieu was saying, everywhere big funds are investing in it. Can you also explain us the VC fund of Allianz who invest in Cityscoop and other micromobility startups? So it's a lot of question, but you get my point, right?
So yeah, let's start with the partnership with Toyota Tsusho. In fact, we met. I met Toyota Tsusho 3 years ago or something like that, and we had already a co-acceleration partnership with SNCF, which used to be focused on travel and so on. The idea is to identify different verticals that are interesting for Allianz and another corporate, and create this kind of co-acceleration program that bring more to the startup and help us also to better understand the market and the ecosystem. So we started with SNCF, and 3 years ago we met Toyota Tsusho that wanted to create this new micromobility division in Europe. And we built this partnership to help them, to use the acceleration program of Allianz, which starting to be really efficient. And we use that, and we put new services on top of that with the collaboration with Toyota. So it's a win-win game, because it brings more value to the acceleration program, and it helps also to scout the right startup for Toyota. and you experience that, so you know that it's a good game also to have two corporates on board on the co-acceleration program. And if we want to continue to explore that and to continue to build other partnership with other corporate, yes, definitely. If we have opportunity to have partner in different verticals, we will do that. It's the goal is really to have the right partner, to choose the right partner, and not to do a lot of co-acceleration program, but only one in each vertical that are interested into the acceleration program. So the next question was about
VC fund.
Sorry?
The VC fund from
yes.
How do you help them?
Yeah, because at Allianz, in fact, the mobility is really key, as you can understand, because for insurance, we insure a lot of mobility, different kind of mobility, every kind of mobility. And so mobility is important for the acceleration program, but mobility is important also for Allianz. And we have we have corporate venture funds, several one in Allianz France, and 1 billion one in Munich, so at the group, at the level of the group of Allianz. And we invest in different topics. One of them, the big focus is really mobility. We also invest in fintech, in cyber security, in customer relationship, and in health. But it could be something else if at some point there is an opportunity. And the check size are between 100K, several 100K and to 10 million. So it could be a big deal. The last deal that we did with the fund was in January, City Scoot, and just now we announced Z-Way. So we closed that during the lockdown. And if we talk about some of the deal that we did before, we can talk about Itch or Capcar, for example. So this is for Allianz France, corporate venture funds. And if we talk about Allianz X, which is the corporate venture of the group, we invested into Gojek in mobility, for example. We invested into Noto, Urgently, and so on. So but usually it's not the same size of the fund, and it's not at all the same size of tech also. So and usually when we invest into a startup, we have also a deal in terms of insurance partnership. So for example, for Gojek, we have an insurance for Gojek driver. For City Scoot, we have also an insurance for the ride. Usually, the insurance partnership is part of the deal. We need to have a kind of synergy with the partner in mobility. And we were the first one in France. Allianz was the first one in France to insure sharing economy. So we started 6 or 7 years ago with Drivey, and so now we continue. So we have also Lime. The last one in terms of partnership only, not investment, is Free to Move. Yeah. So the car sharing solution of PSA Group, so Peugeot. So we are really invested into mobility and into micro.
Very active.
Is a big focus now.
Thank you, Sylvain. I can see that, and that gives me a good transition to Matthieu. We had the chance also to have Bertrand Fleureau's a few weeks ago for our first webinar. Tia now is also very active, not only in e-scooters, but also in so they just bought Coupe a few months ago. Can you, and just to finish, when we did our first Cosmo safety tour 2 months ago with all of the sharing company, they were saying that they don't want to do only e-scooters, they want to do e-bikes. Some wants to do e-mopeds like you. Can you tell us a bit the strategy? Why did you buy Coupe, and how do you see this market growing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's working well. Can you see the slide here?
So now let's try to enable screen sharing in the middle.
That's what I've done. Partager.
And we have also some question. We will answer that after that. I just want to.
Okay, so I'll do without slides. Will be easier. So
I can do it again. Don't worry.
So it's okay. So basically, we've seen from the beginning that the multimodality was definitely part of the game. We've done several things in that respect. The first thing has been to integrate with a number of public transportation players in order to make sure that we work as a continuity of public transportation, which we think is definitely a valuable offer, although it's being challenged indeed with the COVID restrictions. So that's been the first step. The second step has been to take a look at how we could provide other types of mobility. The first step into that has been to acquire the fleet of Coupe and to deploy it in Berlin in particular, to give a second mode of transportation, in particular for longer rides and for people who were less able to remain up for too long. And there will be other steps indeed in that direction. That I cannot disclose for now, but it's definitely part of our strategy to keep offering different types of vehicles and to become a multimodal platform ourselves for sure. So that's definitely something we keep considering.
Okay, thank you. And I want also to discuss about now the context. We all had a specific roadmap at the beginning of the year. This situation has changed a lot of things. Maybe we can talk about you, Sylvain, because we're talking about how do you want to do your program. You're based in Nice. We're going to digital this program. Can you tell a bit about it? And then we will also talk about funding and how do you see the next few months for all micromobility startups.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of acceleration program, so of course the program will be full digital starting the current batch. So we are starting now the startup for the summer batch. So you can apply on the website, by the way. And the idea is really to have all the activity full digital. So we have a jury, it could be digital. We have different kind of masterclass, workshop, and so on. Everything will be digital, and it's also an opportunity, in fact, because at the Accelerator we have a lot of network, and sometimes it's not easy to have an expert from Singapore or from Hong Kong or from San Francisco, where I have a lot of connection to. It's not easy to have an expert which come to for one day at the Accelerator or something like that. But if you want to do this kind of session and to have different kind of experts, by share their experience with the startup, it's easier by digital. So in every difficulty you have opportunity, and it's exactly what we will do at the Allianz Accelerator for the next step. And so the application is open, and we are going to continue to focus on mobility also, and sustainable mobility, and also inclusive mobility.
So basically, for the startups who are just looking, thank you, Guillaume, is sharing the link to, if you want to subscribe to the next batch. Are you saying that this COVID has a new effect on how you want to select your startup, how you will build the next batch, and how basically it will affect on accelerating these startups compared to before? Have you thought about it or not? Or maybe it's too early.
Yeah. No, in fact, it's yes, it has an impact, of course. We always select the startup with one criteria, which is the sustainability of the startup. So we need to be really cautious, let's say, about this sustainability more than before, because depending on the activity, it will not be the same in the coming months and years. And in fact, there are a lot of let's say uncertainty, and it's not easy to know what will happen in the coming month and year. But it's also opportunities for a lot of startups. For example, for robotic cleaning, robotic, or this kind of robots. All the startup about a lot of robotics that can have a lot of new potential, I think. So we will see.
Okay.
Yeah. If I also may add something, Romain, to what Sylvain just mentioned. When people talk about micromobility, in fact, people tend to think about the vehicle itself. But in fact, what we have seen also at the Accelerator is that there's a lot of companies that whose link is perhaps not immediately obvious with micromobility. For example, nowadays it's very important how companies exchange data. So to be able to secure the encrypted the flow of encrypted data between third parties and separate companies is very important. So this will facilitate, for example, the orchestration by the city of micromobility fleets. Another example that was mentioned briefly before about the viability, we know that micromobility in a mobility as a shared environment is plagued by the fact that the unit cost is very difficult to measure in an efficient way because of vandalism. So there's technologies out there, for example, a company that we have co-accelerated with Allianz, who's e-bike labs, that are developing solutions for micromobility operators that are cost effective and have a big impact on the way that their assets are protected on the road. There's other companies that, for example, are looking at automation and optimize operations. So in that sense, I think micromobility today, to be able to be part of the solution and to be cost-effective solution for companies and also public authorities to deploy massively, they need to be kind of go to the next stage of development to mature their solution. So that's what we're trying to do together with Sylvain, is to attract companies whose technology or vehicles or part of the solution can be brought to make micromobility more sustainable in the longer term.
Thank you, Nicola. You're right. It's much regarding this situation. For now, obviously for the tier, it's potentially a big opportunity. Like all of the different actors who came here on the different webinars, sees that there's a big opportunity for going outside, walking, running, but mostly about riding a bike, an e-bike, or e-scooter, compared to taking the subway or maybe a Uber car. What do you more important? How do you feel? What is a bit the strategy of White Star regarding the funding for young startups in micromobility? Is there a big opportunity? Are you going to look more deeper and deeper in that kind of industry now with this?
So first, regarding the COVID and tier, the first impact of the COVID has been a human impact, because a significant number of people from the team at tier have been touched by the virus at the very beginning in Berlin. And without giving too much details, it touched in particular the HR and finance functions, which you can imagine are quite useful in that sort of environment. So it's been a challenge first. Second, it's been also a reminder of, I think, the mission of the kind of company. And so Tier has put together during the COVID a program called Tier Heroes, which enabled all medical people to get free rides during the COVID period. Because that's also a point where you have to understand what you can be useful for and what you can do for the cities you are operating in. That's been the second point. And then the third point, of course, is now the sort of recovery with both a number of new constraints due to hygiene and health topics, and reduced traffic as well overall, because people are less out than in normal periods still. And of course, also an opportunity. So, given the constraints, what here has put together is a number of things. First, regarding health, including, for example, a self-cleaning bar that is in test right now. So that in addition to the cleaning by human beings, when the swappable batteries are being swapped, because you may know that Thier has been one of the first ones to use swappable batteries on the scooters. And in addition to the cleaning that being done each time a battery is being swapped, now Thier is testing a self-cleaning bar, which is a very interesting concept. That's is indeed very good for the current context. And I'm not mentioning here the number of things, including like the masks that have been provided to all employees, the number of things that all companies in the sector probably should be doing or are doing. But that's the number of constraints that we've been taking into account and using. Now, in terms of opportunity, for sure, first, the development of consciousness around the need for clean transportation has made the need for such companies as the micromobility ones with a strong environmental friendly DNA. We're talking for Thier, for example, about carbon neutral, climate neutral company fully. So that's something that makes even more sense in the current environment, given the consciousness that has emerged for a number of people. So I guess that's the first thing that makes this kind of business even more relevant. Second thing, as you mentioned, is the fact that urban transportation, common transportation, is something that's being challenged at the moment in the distance that's being needed. And so, yes, we do believe that there's a massive opportunity in front of us, especially in an environment where a number of players have been weakened by the crisis, especially on the American side of things, because especially they didn't have the same sort of protection from the states as well as European players have had. So we've seen that they're going through very difficult times, to say the least. So that's, I think, a massive opportunity for European players, yes, in this market. Now for Whitestar, we indeed keep investing, indeed keep looking at the mobility space with an eye on both sides of first the usage, i.e. ownership and rental, different types of vehicles, and also a number of things that are the technologies and new types of businesses that are being involved by the rise of mobility. So the first investment we made in that respect a year and a half ago was Mindstay, which is a company basically that's providing chatbots and customer support automation dedicated to the mobility space. And definitely this company, for example, is booming at the moment because they have as clients and potential clients the kind of players we're talking about, which need customer support, and at the same time have such levels of revenue per customer that they cannot dedicate physical people to answer each and every question. So this kind of tech layer that goes with tech is also something that we're strongly looking at, as well as the question of infrastructure needed to operate the micromobility players. So just to give you a few examples of things we're looking at the moment. But yes, definitely still very interested in the space.
And how about, I'm asking the three of you, but what do you feel, guys, about all this new brand of e-bike coming on the market from the French startup Colline, from Cowboy Bike, Van Move? or potentially Marc Simoncini? Is it the kind of thing where you guys at Wistar, and I'm going to ask you what you think also about Sylvain, and because it's changing a lot, it's a lot of actors, it's a lot of people are ready to invest. Is it something that Wistar would be interested to invest in? I'm not just trying to push any, just to see if it's something where you would go on the branding.
No, it's definitely something we're looking at, in the sense that we see ownership, in particular of vehicles, as a complementary use to rental. It's a different use. That's also the reason why we have at Tier, for example, we have launched My Tier, which is ownership at the end of the rental life of scooters.
Okay.
And it's been quite a success already in Germany, and that's proven us that it's not cannibalizing our initial business. So
Okay.
the ownership for sure is something we're looking at. Then the question I would ask in terms of bikes is, and bike users know it well, the number of bike brands that are on the market at the moment is quite spectacular. There is indeed a mediatization effect on the last ones that have raised money. And it seems like bike niches are being more and more structured. You got your city bike, you've got your mountain bikes, you've got your electric bikes, and so on and so forth. And so there will probably be nice players in each of these niches. But it's hard to tell for those players, which for a lot of them are still very young, what kind of barriers to entry they are putting on the markets, besides nice marketing, and so maybe the beginning of a branding that could be interesting for some users. So that's as usual the probably the main question that we are asking ourselves every time we look at a business like this. It's what is this company doing very differently from others, besides having a brand new name and a nice logo?
Branding, yeah.
And is there anything different in the marketing or in the go-to-market or in the tech that makes it more appealing in the long term and potentially a very large business?
I think like Nicola said, and also Sylvain, the idea is really to bring a new technology. So why do we talk about smart bike? Why do we talk about this angel bike, this cowboy bike, this Van Move? First, they have a design, but they bring something more. And we know very well at Cosmo what we need to work on, how to improve riders' safety by using technology. So maybe Sylvain, to finish on that, when you work with a company like e-bikes Lab, is it something that also you'll try to target how to use technology, try to help them grow? They have the tech, they are the engineer, but maybe your role at the Accelerator is to have them grow and to have them in the strategy and to raise funds too. Just so you can explain about this accelerating program.
Yeah. So in fact, we work more and more, let's say, with kind of deep tech startup which have a lot of technology. So e-bikes Lab was one of them, but we also work with Pragma Mobility, which do hydrogen bike, and we have also in acceleration we have also an Hyperloop project called Transpod, which is a Canadian one. So for this kind of startup, for example, for Transpod and Pragma, it's more about exploring what will happen in the coming years. So to understand what is the next step and to be able to be there in terms of insurance when the thing will happen. And in terms of e-bikes Lab, it's more about safety. Again, like for Cosmo Connected, we were really, safety is really key for insurance, of course. Insurance used to be only someone that pay when something happened. And now we try to do more prevention, so before we pay, and maybe to avoid it at some point, and also to have services after, like we do also with Cosmo Connected with roadside assistance services. So it's a different scope, and it's important for us to understand also the technology, to be able to enable this technology in the e-bike, for example, and also to understand the future of transportation for both people and also goods. Like Nicola said before, transportation of goods is really important also, I think, and it will be key in the next coming months and years with the COVID crisis. It will increase the need of transportation of goods also, I guess.
I think it's a good point, because people need to understand is why Nicola work with you is also to try to identify new startup, identify new technology. Nicola, can you tell us, because we could imagine that you have all the R&D in-house, and like we saw with a lot of our partners, from Decathlon to Michelin to a lot of a lot of big R&D, but doesn't necessarily has the small team to build the hardware and software, for example, knowledge. Can you tell us a bit what kind of thing you're looking in text?
Well, I think the R&D is mostly associated with the manufacturing part of the companies, but in general terms, I would say that because innovation is everywhere, is very dispersed, and it's really important for large corporations to work very closely with startups, not only because they have a different culture and a different urgency but also because so there could be a synergy that is very beneficial for both of them, but also because today it's imposed by the pace of change that is happening. Think about even without looking at the latest terrible development with COVID, which we now salute in micromobility as something that is accelerating existing trends. But think about the transformation that mobility has gone through in the last 3-4 years. And all of the transformation was basically created not by traditional mobility company, by tech companies, which maybe a couple of years ago, they didn't even exist. So that's why it's really important for large corporations to really try to intercept innovation at a very early stage and work with them together, because they also need to be able to scale up quickly in order to be competitive and to be able to bring their solutions. So right now, what we are seeing is that there's a lot of efforts. Of course, we're not the only ones that are working with startups. But what we have seen is that, particularly in a vertical, micromobility, which is very complex because it's got the same kind of complexity in terms of regulatory, in terms of market adaptation, in terms of also vehicles, but also platform, also in terms of business model. It has a lot of complexities. So that's why it's very important in technology, of course. It's very important to be able to have a good overview and a good cooperation with a lot of different companies, because this will make the overall strategy more effective in trying to give solutions to the user. Right now with COVID, we have seen an acceleration of existing trends. For example, in the change of infrastructures, the change of ownership model, like you mentioned. Now there's a number of e-bike offering that is being pitched to the consumers that are making very good business. But also, I would say there's a new generation of shareable e-bicycles, which is being created. That's something completely different. It's a completely different market. But that's also something that we're following very closely, because in order for like it happened in the kick scooter market, in order for the solution, the vehicles to be a mobility solution, to be deployable at scale, you need the vehicle itself to be designed as a shareable vehicle from the start. So that's what we expect to see. It's a new generation of bicycles. Some of them are already hitting the market that are designed to be shareable. And in that case, we think they're going to be able to really make a big contribution to the mobility of people. This will also be helped by the fact that there's a lot of tenders now that are being rushed by the city authorities, because they see micromobility as part of the solution, being a good alternative to the use of public transportation. So that is also going to require large corporations to accelerate the relationship and the learning phase in order to bring this type of cooperation to the market. The last, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted ask you also about what's the situation post-COVID for you in Japan, because we talked about it's interesting to see how do you see things there and how it will affect.
Yeah. Well, for a start, if we talk about micromobility, which is the main topic today, if we talk about specifically about that, micromobility in Japan is, I would say, less developed than if you look at Europe. We are much more advanced in terms of infrastructures adoption, especially in the northern parts of Europe. So the culture there has been sort of not really driven. So the changes that were happening in Europe and in North America, for example, in terms of free floating, was just not touching Japan because essentially for regulatory reasons. There's also cultural reasons. There's also, I would say, the fact that let's say the relationship to risk and to fast-paced micromobility in countries like Japan is very different from what we can see here, and this is promoted also by a different regulatory environment. And just to tell you a very practical example, the way that pedal-assisted bicycles are built in Japan is different because they have to comply with local regulation, which makes it more difficult to have a more aggressive experience in the name of safety. So as a result of that, even the design of bicycle, if you look at Japan, is quite traditionally oriented. So everything that is COVID related, of course, as you see in the news, so far for a number of reasons, which is still not entirely clear, Japan fortunately has not been affected as we were in Europe, especially in some countries. And so let's say that the impact that we see of the trends that we see in Europe right now, in Japan so far has been quite limited. But we also, of course, expect, because everybody knows that Europe is showing the way in many ways, because cities were designed around micromobility in pedestrians, particularly, well before the advent of the car. The world is looking at Europe and the solutions that they use in order to prepare the next generation of transportation. So in that sense, also Japan is looking very closely at what's happening in Europe and other parts of the world, because this will have an impact very soon, we think, also on Japan.
So are you saying that we're going to get some shared mobility in Japan? Matthieu, are you planning to go to Japan with a tier? Nicola, do you think the shared mobility is coming? And maybe Matthieu could.
Well, you use the very critical word shared. Right now, it's being put under scrutiny, and so the conditions to have that to happen are becoming complex on one side and necessary to kind of articulate on the other. But yes, if you ask my personal opinion, because I cannot tell you more than my personal opinion at this point in time, I'm pretty sure that this type of micromobility, shared micromobility, at some stage, sooner than later, will also be embraced in countries which have been particularly shy. I mean, if we take, because Europe is a patchwork of different experiences, right? So if you take the European experiences, countries that were very reluctant, for example, to embrace kick scooters before COVID, I'm thinking about UK, I'm thinking about even some cities in Italy, are now rushing to try to embrace those solutions, and they're rushing their tender policies in order to have them to become part of the official, let's say, public transportation network. So we believe that as the cities will realize the benefits of micromobility, being less congestion and cleaner air, and of course reduction in accidents, fatalities in particular, as they realize that, they will want to turn what are now considered to be temporary solutions into definitive solutions. So yes, I do believe that this will also hit a relatively conservative country like Japan to adopt this type of micromobility solutions once a few things have been adjusted.
Very interesting. So maybe a Toyota scooter one day in Japan, maybe a tier. What do you think, Matthieu?
Thank you very much, Romain, for your time and everyone. I'm sorry I need to rush on my end, but happy to answer any additional questions that anyone may have. So my email is matthew@whitestarcapital.com, and happy to have. Yeah, please. I'll write it in the chat. And talk to you soon. And thanks again to everyone. And was glad to.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for your time. It was a great pleasure to have you, and thanks for this big announcement. And wish you all the best. And we'll be very happy to try this scooter, including the helmets. And thank you. Yeah, you said, Nicola, that the city are moving, especially in London, where it was kind of forbidden to get this sharing mobility, especially this, I think it's Lime or Bird who's planning to go there. Anyway, so it was very, very interesting. Just maybe to finish, a little tip, Sylvain, what could you say to young startups who hear, what kind of advice could you tell them? Especially after this situation?
In terms of
tough question,
yeah,
to end in a positive way, positive note.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say exactly the same thing. So be aware of the cash. Cash is king. So it's really important to manage your relationship with your investor and to see what kind of cash you will need in the coming months and years. So this is one first thing, and also the other one is usually this kind of crisis is also a big opportunity for a lot of startups. So try to find your own opportunity on this crisis, and don't take it as a difficulty, but more as an opportunity. So, for example, I can give an example about that. So we have a startup that we accelerate called Go Mecano, which enable to have mechanics at home or at your workplace. And during the COVID crisis, we did an operation with them to repair for free all the car from medical people, and we did that all during all the lockdown period. And now they are so at the end of the lockdown they reopened the operation for all the people, and now they have an operation to change your battery for free. So you pay only the battery, and so you can call Go Mecano for that, and they come at your home or at your workplace. So that's a very good service launched in south of France, and now they are going to expand that in different countries, in different cities in France, and so. But that's an opportunity. They take the opportunity, in fact, of the crisis, and they do something good also for this crisis and for people.
And regarding it's a cash crisis, and well, in France, there's some opportunity to get a lot of help. How will you be able to help additional startups to move on your next batch to finish on that? Basically, what did you could say to startups to come and join your program?
Yeah, so just to say, in fact, what we do for the startups, so we help them to scale, both on preparing them to raise fund, to have all the information about the VCs, all the right connection, and so on, to be able to raise fund. Also, we help them to go international with different partners. It could be Toyota, Tsusho, but we have also other partner, other connection in different countries, and we can help them also to go international. And of course, we help them. It's an excellent go to Allianz. And if you want to work with Allianz, so for example, I can take the example again of Cosmo Connected, but Cosmo Connected arrived at the Accelerator. And one month after, I think something like that, they sign a partnership with Allianz partner. So I think from outside the Accelerator, it was not possible to do so quickly. So very good go to Allianz France, but also the group. We are in more than 17 countries. It's a very big group, and for example, for all the mobility startup, for sharing economy startup, it's a very a good asset to have Allianz as a partner. You can talk to Drivey if you want also to have more information about how is the
open door.
So Drivey was first launched in France, and we have a partnership with them 7 years ago. And then we help them at the insurance point of view to launch in Germany and so on. So yeah, so just apply, or just I think maybe Romain will share after all the information. You can apply to the Allianz Accelerator, and to have more information. You don't need to relocate your team in Nice. It's really important, because some of you think that you need to do that. It's not necessary. And we have a very good track record, so a lot of VCs are looking for the startup we select. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvain. Nicola, to finish on a positive note, what can you say to startups who are trying to grow their business in micromobility?
Well, this has all been positive, right? When we talk about an argument that is passionate and useful, like micromobility is, it's always positive. Now, I can only say if you have a technology that is helping, I would say also beyond micromobility. One thing that we didn't mention is that, for example, we're working with robotics a lot, and another example of a good partnership that came out of the cooperation with Sylvain is Spoon, which we are helping to distribute in Japan. We help with the development and the localization for it's basically a very advanced robotic company, redesigning completely the interaction between humans and machines, which is also becoming very relevant at this point in time. The automation, let's say, and that kind of relation is very important. So if you have a solution that can be, helping the transition to a society which will have to be, adapting the way that citizens are interacting with vehicles, with machines, with mobility, which is pretty much every single aspect of our life, then you're probably a good candidate to submit your proposal to Sylvain and work together with us to bring your solution to different parts of the world. So if you have a solution, please make sure that you pitch it to us. In terms of impact on the way that we work, it was mentioned before. If I look, Romain, I was thinking the last 3 times I've met you in the last 3-4 months. Yeah. I've met you in London. I've met you in Las Vegas. I met you in Japan and probably Singapore as well, I don't remember.
For the CES.
So the way that we need to work now, of course, is being transformed. And but in terms of scouting and being exposed to startups, I think it's a blessing, because it's a much more effective. I think it's a much more effective use of our time. So it's easier now to get in touch. It's easy to get a pitch over, to share information. So we look forward to seeing more and more startups trying to reach us and try to work together. And thank you for today again.
Thank you, Nicola. And I would just finish to attest also, as I was part of this great program, that for a startup like us, it was a big opportunity first to meet very interesting people from other startups, from also mentors, VCs. You didn't, maybe we had the chance to meet the best VCs, the French VCs with Allianz, and also the partnership with Toyota Tsusho is helping us, because, like you said, we met in different kind of places of the world, went together to Japan. We had it brings us a lot of opportunity, of experience, and I think that the only thing that I can say is, we really need to try to be focused on our day-to-day, try to see that there's opportunity to work in micromobility. The world is changing, and in a good way. So I think thank you very much, guys, for being here. Thanks for everyone who watching. We will be able, if you are okay, Sylvain and Nicola, to share your presentation, or at least some presentation for people who request it. And it was a great pleasure to have you, the three of us, with Matthieu, and we will continue our webinar every week with some French startup, the next one, and thanks again, and I hope you are safe and enjoying now riding outside using a Cosmo connected solution. Sylvain, Nicolas, always a pleasure.
Merci. Au revoir. Thank you very much.
Bye.
À très vite tout le monde.
Thank
Merci
you.
pour tout.
Thank you, Romain.
Merci.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.